I'm Jack Whitehead, talking to you from Bath in the UK, and it's to wish you well in your pre-conference day where you're looking at action research and the future of action research in a diverse and changing Canada, a call for action in teacher education. And it's a real pleasure to just talk to you for a few minutes about my own experience of working in Canada, certainly from the late 1990s, largely in the Brantford area with the Grand Erie Board, where I was working with Jacqueline Long, Superintendent of Schools, who's working with you now today, as I was supervising her doctorate, as she worked on developing teacher research and action research as a form of professional learning in the Grand Erie District Board. And we published quite a number of papers, and we're still presenting papers, like at the American Education Research Association this year. And I do hope you will Google Action Research Canada, because this is where there are many papers, many accounts from teacher researchers using action research, right from their beginning with questions of the kind of improving practice. And these accounts are, if you like, the bedrock of the future of action research. They rest on your individual responsibility for exploring the implications of your questions. How do I improve what I'm doing? I can't overestimate the importance of those first inquiries, which often are not part of accredited programs, but they can become part of professional learning and development programs for master's and doctoral degrees. And if you Google Action Research Canada and go into that website, you will see many accounts of teacher researchers in Canada with a large number of non-accredited accounts from teachers in volumes of what is called Passion in Professional Practice. And you will also see master's accounts from the Blue Water Action Research Network in terms of the master's dissertations that have already been accredited. So I do hope that you will actually access those to have a look at some of the ideas that have developed, not only, as I say, for the future of action research, but also have emerged from the past into the present. And it's that focus on this relationship between what we've been doing in the past in terms of action research and what it is that you might actually now do as you create the future, which it doesn't yet exist, but nevertheless is actually motivating you to create a better world and a better future for yourselves and your students as you work at improving your students' learning in your own teacher education. And I want to emphasize in this process of, if you like, creating a future for action research, how important your values are in improving practice. And when I talk about values, I'm meaning this term of ontological values. They're so profoundly important, these kinds of values. They're the values that you use to give meaning and purpose to your life as you work in education to improve your practice. And the idea of action research involving a systematic form of action reflection cycle is the bedrock of many action research inquiries. You actually talk to individuals about the values you hold, about what you want to improve. You imagine what to do. You act and gather data to make a judgment about your influence as you're acting. You evaluate your influence, drawing on this data, and you produce a validated explanation of your influence and share it with others. And this idea of validation is increasingly important in the world because it helps you to gain confidence that your work can actually be accredited and count towards the professional knowledge base of education. These validation groups, which I do hope you're already creating for yourselves, sometimes often between 3 to 8 people, and you ask your validation group to help you to strengthen the validity of your explanations of influence by suggesting ways you can improve the comprehensibility of your account. That is, how much sense is it making? Is it communicating well? You ask people, can you work out ways of strengthening the evidence that you offer to justify the assertions you're making? The third point, which helps to enhance the validity of your explanations, is to build on what we call the socio-historical and socio-cultural influences that really do affect your writings and your practice. And people can help you to draw on the most advanced social theories of the day to bring insights from these theories into your explanations of influence. And the fourth one, which I really do like, it's to do with authenticity. It's just the questions that can, in terms of answers from your validation group, that can help you to enhance the sense of authenticity that you're truly living as fully as you can the values you claim to hold. And all these ideas are really important in terms of the future of action research. And that future is emerging directly from your explanations of what you're doing in the present. Because we often explain what we're doing in the present by drawing on our evaluations of the past and also putting into our explanations our intentions to improve things in the future for a future that does not yet exist but we are working towards. Now, if you look in Canada and this idea of a diverse and changing Canada, I think many of you will recognise just how important the Indigenous knowledge of the groups that you have in Canada, having some of the largest groups of First Nation people within the country and also within North America. And so this idea that your own inquiries can build in insights from the knowledges, which are Indigenous knowledges, which go further back than the early colonisation of Canada, but which can be brought into your explanations of your understanding of the social context in which your lives and your research is taking place, are very important. So I would say, as well as having the bedrock in action research, your personal responsibility for improving practice, do please also look at this idea of the social responsibility you have for helping to improve the social formations for all Canadians. And I would suggest that it goes wider than the Canadian context. And I know that you're looking at the future of action research and a changing and diverse Canada and a call for action in terms of teacher education. But I would also urge you to look at this idea that you're also a global citizen, that you're also accepting, I think, in action research, a responsibility for connecting with the wider social context and social movements, which in Canada, in terms of the aid that you offer all the way around the world, shows that you accept a social responsibility for enhancing the quality of life of the many millions that at the moment are living in poverty, and actually many do not have sufficient to eat, many are actually under war conditions, and in action research, because of its commitment to peace and productivity, can actually bring insights into the different parts of the world. So I'm hoping, as well as focusing on improving your own practice in your own context, which is the bedrock of the future of action research, revealing and exploring the values and in many cases evolving the values that you use to enhance the quality of your own life and the life of others, you will also look further ahead to the social formations, not only within your region and within your nation, but also internationally in terms of the values that can help with the flourishing of humanity. And here I'll just mention someone who I think all of you will have heard of, and that is Nelson Mandela. Now, Nelson Mandela, if you Google Nelson Mandela Ubuntu on YouTube, you'll get a YouTube of Nelson Mandela talking about an Ubuntu way of being, which is a way of being emerging from Africa, which talks about I am because we are. It's a commitment to actually your relationship to others. It's taking a responsibility towards the other and accepting that sense of community responsibility. And I think that we can all benefit from insights coming out of different contexts, especially such as Ubuntu in South Africa, which is connected to the values that carry hope for the flourishing of humanity. And if you will just hold on to that idea that in your explanations about the future of action research and the call for action in teacher education in Canada, that you're revealing the values that actually count towards the flourishing of humanity. And you're holding yourself accountable for living these values, for researching and producing validated explanations of your influence from your own context, but which nevertheless can actually connect to the wider social formations in relation to those values. So in terms of this idea of the diversity of the changing Canada, I do hope you will access what is already being done in action research. For example, in the website Action Research Canada, that if you, as I say, Google that, please, because if you go into Jackie DeLong's writings, you will see that she's already been presenting at the American Education Research Association her work with First Nation groups in Canada to actually show what it's meant to her to be researching in a non-colonial way with First Nation groups to bring these values into the public domain and actually share them with others. And I trust as you actually engage with this idea of a diverse and changing Canada that you will actually focus on these kinds of accounts, some of which have already been published. First of all in the Ontario Action Researcher, which then became the Canadian Journal of Action Research. And again, if you will go Google both of those, I think you will get access to superb accounts which show what is already being done in Canadian contexts and which you will actually be able to contribute to and deepen and extend. So there is my just introduction to the pre-conference, and I do hope that it stimulates you to engage with these ideas of the future of action research, actually resting in the expression of your own personal and social responsibilities to live your values as fully as you can and bring into the public domain your explanations of educational influence. So I wish you once again a successful conference. Bye for now.